Welcome to my YouTube channel Wise Whispers, where silence speaks. The day I realized I was more than a wallet. My name is Margaret, and I am 63 years old. There is a moment in life when a single sentence can break something inside you, something you didn't even know was fragile. For me, that moment happened at my son's dining table. And the sentence was this: "You're just a wallet to me." The hook. The room went silent after my son said it. His wife froze with a glass of wine halfway to her lips. My grandson stopped tapping his spoon on the table. Even the ticking clock on the kitchen wall suddenly sounded louder than it should have. But the loudest thing in that room was the echo of my son's words inside my chest. "You're just a wallet to me." I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply stood up, picked up my coat and left. But that night would become the night my son learned the true value of a mother. A mother's life. I raised my son Daniel alone. His father passed away when Daniel was only 6 years old. One ordinary morning he went to work, and by evening the hospital was calling me with news that shattered my world. Suddenly I was a widow at 34, with a little boy holding my hand and asking, "Mom, when is Dad coming home?" I still remember kneeling down, holding his tiny shoulders, and trying to explain something no child should have to hear. From that day on, Daniel became my entire world. I worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. During the day, I worked as a secretary at a small insurance office. At night, I cleaned offices downtown. Sometimes I came home at midnight, my feet aching and my back stiff. But every night before sleeping, I checked Daniel's room to make sure he was warm, safe, and dreaming peacefully. I told myself the exhaustion was worth it. Because I wasn't just raising a child. I was raising my future. Sacrifices. Daniel grew into a bright and charming young man. He was popular in school, good at sports, and had a smile that could light up a room. But raising him wasn't easy. There were bills, school trips, broken bicycles, doctor visits, and college savings. There were nights I skipped dinner so Daniel could have seconds. There were winters when I wore the same old coat for 5 years, so he could have a new one. When Daniel got accepted into college, I cried with pride. I also quietly took a second loan to help pay his tuition. He hugged me that day and said, "Mom, one day I'll take care of you." I believed him. Because that's what mothers do. We believe in our children, even when life gives us reasons not to. The wedding. Years passed quickly. Daniel graduated, found a good job, and eventually met a woman named Sophia. Sophia was beautiful, confident, and intelligent. But from the first moment I met her, I sensed something distant in her smile. Still, Daniel loved her. And that was enough for me. At their wedding, I stood in the back of the hall watching my son dance with his bride. I felt proud. I also felt something else I couldn't explain. Maybe it was the quiet realization that my role in Daniel's life was slowly changing. But that's natural. Children grow. They build their own lives. And mothers step aside. The small requests. At first, Daniel would call occasionally. "Mom, could you help us with the security deposit for the apartment?" Of course I helped. Then a few months later, "Mom, our car broke down, could you lend us some money?" Of course I helped again. Then came furniture, repairs, medical bills, vacations. Each time Daniel would promise, "I'll pay you back." But he never did. And I never asked. Because mothers don't keep score. The distance. Over the years, something slowly changed. Daniel called less often. When he did call, the conversations felt rushed. And most of the time, they involved money. "Mom, could you help us with something?" I noticed something else too. Sophia rarely spoke to me directly. She always let Daniel handle the conversations. Sometimes I wondered if she saw me as a mother, or simply as an extra bank account. But I ignored the thought. Because doubt is painful. And sometimes hope is easier to hold on to. The dinner. One evening Daniel called. "Mom, why don't you come over for dinner this Friday?" My heart warmed instantly. It had been months since we had a real family dinner. I baked Daniel's favorite apple pie and drove to their house with a smile on my face. When I arrived, Sophia greeted me politely, though her smile felt thin. Daniel hugged me quickly before returning to his phone. We sat at the table, plates full of food, wine glasses clinking softly. For a moment, everything felt normal, like the family dinners we used to have years ago. Then Daniel cleared his throat. The conversation. "Mom," he said, "we've been thinking about something." Sophia nodded beside him. "Our mortgage payments are getting tight," Daniel continued. "And we were wondering if you could help us again." I looked at him quietly. "How much?" I asked. Daniel hesitated. 50,000. The number hit me like a sudden gust of cold air. "That's a lot," I said softly. Sophia leaned forward. "Well, Margaret, you live alone. You don't really need that much money." Something inside me shifted. For the first time, I felt something that wasn't sadness. It was disappointment. "I've already helped many times," I said gently. Daniel's expression hardened. "Yeah, but you're our mother." "I know. So what's the problem?" I took a slow breath. "I just can't afford that right now." And that's when Daniel said the words that would change everything. The sentence. He laughed bitterly and said, "Mom, don't act like this suddenly matters. You've always been just a wallet to me anyway." The room froze. Sophia didn't stop him. My grandson looked confused. And my heart broke. But something else happened too. For the first time in decades, I saw my son clearly. Not the little boy who needed me. Not the teenager who hugged me after graduation. But a grown man who had forgotten the meaning of love. Walking away. I stood up slowly. No shouting. No tears. Just quiet dignity. "I see," I said. Daniel looked surprised. "Mom, don't be dramatic." I picked up my coat. "I'm not being dramatic," I replied calmly. "I'm just leaving." Sophia rolled her eyes. Daniel shrugged. Neither of them followed me. And that told me everything I needed to know. The long night. Driving home that night felt like traveling through memories. Daniel's first steps. His first day of school. The nights he fell asleep on my shoulder. How could that little boy grow into someone who saw me as nothing more than a bank? I cried that night. Not because of the money, but because of the love that had slowly turned into something else. A new beginning. The next morning, something unexpected happened. Instead of feeling broken, I felt free. For the first time in years, I realized something important. My life didn't have to revolve around Daniel anymore. I had given him love, time, sacrifice, and support. But I had forgotten to give something to myself. So I started making changes. Living for myself. I joined a local book club. I started volunteering at a community center. I even took painting classes, something I had always dreamed of doing but never had time for. Slowly, my life began filling with new colors. New friends, new laughter, and new peace. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living again. The call. 6 months later, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Hello." His voice sounded different. "Mum, can we talk?" I remained quiet. "I'm sorry," he said. For the first time since that night, I heard regret in his voice. But apologies are complicated things. Sometimes they come too late. The lesson. "Daniel," I said calmly, "do you know why your words hurt so much?" He didn't answer. "Because I never saw you as a burden. I never saw you as an expense, I saw you as my son. Silence filled the phone line. But you saw me as a wallet. I didn't mean it, he whispered. Maybe you didn't, I replied, but sometimes the truth slips out when we least expect it. Understanding. Weeks later, Daniel came to visit. He looked tired, older somehow. When he stepped into my house, he looked around as if seeing it for the first time. I didn't realize how much you sacrificed, he said quietly. I smiled sadly. You weren't supposed to realize, parents don't keep receipts. Daniel lowered his head. I was wrong. And for the first time in a long time, I saw the boy I had raised. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is not easy. But it is powerful. I forgave Daniel. Not because he deserved it, but because carrying anger would only poison my own heart. Still, things were different. Boundaries existed now. Respect existed now. And Daniel understood something he had never understood before. His mother was not a wallet. She was a human being. The morals. Looking back now, I realize something important. Love should never be measured in money. And respect should never be taken for granted. Sometimes people forget the value of someone who has always been there. But when that person finally walks away, the lesson becomes impossible to ignore.